saloon education being fine and all that, but it was very colonial. We were being taught so that we could serve the colonial masters.
I think people see any vocational skill as a second option. Like, okay, I know you go university, so let's go do catering.
Oh, you want to turn musician? You understand? Music, no, they pay, they pay you. Football,
Right.
they pay you. Be literate, right? But creativity should be as important as literacy.
Welcome to Honestly Speaking, a podcast where we have honest conversations about real issues shaping our lives. My name is Antonia Howard, and I'm your host. If you listened to the last episode, you know we had a conversation about education in Sierra Leone, and the question I asked was whether the education system in Sierra Leone is really preparing us for the future. Is it preparing young people for the future? I thought one conversation was not enough. So, this is part 2 of that conversation. Today, my guest is Bassie Bondiva Toure. He's an educator who is passionate about youth development and holistic learning. He serves as the admissions lead for Anglophone West Africa at the African Leadership Academy in Johannesburg, where he oversees recruitment and partnerships across 6 countries. Now, one of the main reasons I have him on this conversation is because he's deeply committed to co-curricular learning in Sierra Leone, and he's curating programs at the Sierra Leone Grammar School. So he's not just talking about education or change in the learning systems or education in Sierra Leone. He's actively working in the system. So welcome to Honestly Speaking, Bassie.
Thank you, Antonia.
Right.
Happy to be here.
So I had this conversation with Dr. Yakama Manti Jones, and I just thought you could also add some perspective to what we spoke about. So my first question to you is, what would you say makes an education system prepare young people? What would you say equips young people when it comes to education?
Well, I think what prepares young people for the future is having the right skills and being able to develop those skills in the right environment. So, for any young person to thrive, they have to really have the enabling environment to develop the skills and have the sort of experiences that they need to succeed in the future. Now, the thing about education today is that we can only imagine what the future would be. None of us really, I mean, if you ask our parents when they were 10, they probably wouldn't tell you that Sierra Leone or the world will be the way it is now. Now we have artificial intelligence, and everyone is trying to grapple with how is AI going to transform our lives.
Yeah.
So the best way we can prepare learners, young people, for the future is if we give them what some educators call, critical skills. You'd hear a lot of educators, a lot of schools talk about 21st century skills. So the 4 C's are creativity, critical thinking, communications, and collaboration. So if you teach young people to think creatively, to find their passions and their interests, um, and think out of the box and use these interests to solve problems. If you teach them to think beyond the obvious, to be curious, to ask questions and not just make assumptions, and if you teach them to communicate effectively, not just orally, but also how to write well and also digitally as well, and even preserve some of the old forms of communication. And if you show them how to work with each other, to realize that everyone has something different that they'll bring to the table, that's the best thing you'll do for any young person to do well.
I think one of the things that Dr. Yakama said, which is something you've also brought up, is this critical thinking and that problem solving mentality. But in Sierra Leone, and again, this is not unique to Sierra Leone, this is true for education systems, I would say, across the world. There is an insistence on exams and examinations, passing exams. But from your point of view, does that really prepare any student or any pupil for for real life? Does it prepare young people to tackle problems that they would come across in real life when they're out of school, when they're out of university? It
Um,
depends on the kind
it
of exam.
depends. It does. And I'm saying this because actually, standardized testing within education is a problem, and I think it's not that exams are inherently bad. I mean,
Mm.
I used to love exams when I was in school. And it's good because in some ways, it fosters some healthy competition between,
Mm.
say, high academic achievers, and it's one way for teachers to really know how their students are performing.
Mm-hmm.
But in places like Sierra Leone, for example, we have focused heavily on just exams, writing tests, writing
Mm.
exams, but there are alternative ways to assessing students' ability to understand specific topics, right? So even at our schools, even at the grammar school, and I'm sure also other schools in Sierra Leone, we talk about, okay, not just exams, give assignments. Um, Now I tell my students, listen, if I give you an assignment and the best way you can show me that you understood this is by conducting an interview with your mom, right?
Mm.
I see what they do. They have TikToks and some of them are really good content creator.
Mm.
If you show me that you had an interview with your mom and that's it, that's good, right? Or it could be a music. Some of them are artists, right?
Mm.
I know that they rap, right? They have their EPs up. If that's the way you want to show me that, okay, I understood what human development index means, that's good. So it's also about schools and educators thinking about the different ways in which they can be able to get it because
Mm.
also we all learn differently, right?
Right. I
Hmm.
was about to say, I feel like this is going into what you would call holistic learning, which is
Sure.
something you think could help people, students learn better
Hmm.
in school.
Yeah, I think so. I think the other problem here is that we don't focus on personalized learning.
Mm.
And it's difficult, trust me, because if you're in a low resource environment like Sierra Leone, we don't have enough resources to focus on, okay, for Sky for make each individual like gets
Mm-hmm.
that attention there, right?
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
have enough teachers in our schools. We don't have enough classrooms for our students. So that's why you'd be in a public school and there are like 60 people in one class. We
Mm.
all know that's not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to be half of that class probably would never get the teacher's attention. They probably would not even have time for office hours of to speak to the teacher on a one-on-one basis. So it's a problem, but really what we should be thinking of is really that we have to invest in the individual as well because we're all different and we learn differently. Some of us are fast learners, some of us are slow learners, some of us learn visually, some of
Mm.
us learn when we take notes. I mean, even that is a problem. I know there's some teachers that just like dictating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some teachers don't enjoy writing, and so they just like giving lectures. So holistic learning is important,
Mm.
but again, and that's that's where systems change
Mm.
comes, and that's where even critical thinking for policymakers come, because then you have to think about now how can we do that in a country like Sierra Leone where
Mm.
we don't have enough money.
Tell me a little bit about the co-curricular programs you do at the Sierra Leone Grammar School and how you think, or what is the intention rather, what is the intention and how you think those programs impact the students?
Um, for me, it was a nod back to the child within me.
Mm.
I spent 7 years at grammar school, and they form part of my core memory. Now, what um, was really good about grammar school was the emphasis on what we call social education. So we actually had 3 periods on Wednesdays, right? They still have that. 3 periods on Wednesdays that is focused on social education. You have to get out of the classroom
Mm.
and you'd either have club meetings, so you could be in drama club or we have an arts club called Johnny
Mm.
Man Arts Club, or you could be in the school choir or nature club or LNDS or French club. That was really cool. I didn't have that in primary school.
Mm.
If we didn't have club meetings on another week, we'd have house meetings. So you'd be in your house. We have 5 houses, right? And You could either be preparing for inter-house quiz competition or inter-house football competition or athletics. And then you'd have special days where we would have a missionary meeting where the entire school would fundraise, and then the class that had the highest amount of money would be given a special shield, and then the money would be used to help vulnerable people around Freetown. And I'm going to remind you of something, Antonia. When I was in secondary school, one of the things I loved doing was attending prize givings. I'd always known from then that I wanted to work in schools. And I remember going to international school prize giving, for example. And I remember you always dancing, doing cultural dance, you, Frances Bunu,
Yeah,
and
all the way
others.
from Form 1 to Form 6.
Exactly. I remember Frances said it to me, they say, like almost like it's they didn't want to leave that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think this is a long-winded answer, but really what I wanted to say with all of that was that after leaving Sierra Leone, and then I went to UWC, and then I studied in some other places. But I realized that with my friends there, that a lot of them were so talented, right? They knew how to play at least two instruments. I mean, they loved either they could either be doing theater or they were very good artists, right? And I had conversations with them like, how did you have time for this? And they learned these things in school. For me, I've always thought, why can't we do the same in Sierra Leone, right? I do understand that yes, there are challenges, but when I look at a school like grammar school, which I know well, and one of the things that we've done really well is that we have a really good alumni network, and that they have invested a lot of their resources into the school. And so I was like, you know what? We can think of ways in which we can give these young people these foundational skills, right? That's it's only so much we can do, but it's about, so even when I now, one of the things I've also done is to launch a guest lecture series. So every now and then, bring someone, either an
Yeah.
author or an artist or lawyer, doctor, whatever. But really, for me, it's just planting seeds in them so that they
Yeah.
can aspire to something. Um, so
Would
I'll
you
tell.
say,
Mhm,
would you say, um, generally speaking,
mhm.
generally speaking, and because I know that some people would have their own arguments,
Yeah.
and I have my own arguments about this, but would you say creativity isn't necessarily prioritized in school? And is that a problem in schools in Sierra Leone? Is that a problem?
100%. It's not just schools, it's a societal issue, right?
Mm.
Oh, you want to go turn musician, you understand? Music no they pay, no they pay you, football no they
Right,
pay you, you
right.
understand? And I think all of us are creative, and especially in a place like Sierra Leone. I'll give you one example. Every time I look at people like Samfa or Big Ju, or there's this kid Malachi Bayor who went to Britain's Got Talent. I look at people like that, and I'm like, or even what's the late Michaela the Prince, right? There are so many talented Sierra Leoneans that share the same genes as they do, but the reason why they couldn't really be like them is because they don't have the resources that they have. They are privileged to have in these Western countries, right? So the talent is there, and we know that we were in classes with people we know say, hey, this if you've not been doing at Salo, it don't go far.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is there, and I think we need a mindset change, and I'm really happy that now we have people like you, right? That are really getting people to shift their mindset. So, oh, look at Antonia Howard. She went to Frabe College, and she was at AYV, and she's doing this. They can look at that and support their child. Okay, if they want to go and become a journalist, they can do
Right.
that. You look at Drizzlick, what he has been able to achieve,
Yeah.
right?
I think that's a big part of it, right? Because it could be that the child wants something, but because they don't have the right support system, then they just end up succumbing to whatever is around them that they feel pleases their parents or whoever is their sponsor. And without the right support system, people just bury their creativity because they think, this is the path this person wants for me, so I might as well just
Just
follow the path. Lucky for me and people like Jizalik and even yourself, you had the right support system. You had parents or guardians around you who understood that there's not just one way or one route to success, right?
You've highlighted something that's really important here. It's, I mean, we say this often. It takes a village. It's not just government creating policies. It's not just schools changing the way they teach. It's also what happens at home. And really, for us to transform the lives of young people, these different stakeholders have to work together. That's why conversations like this matter, so that parents can listen to this and realize, listen, yes, we know that there are issues, that there are problems here with taking certain path, and we know that it's difficult for you to find fulfillment and especially make money, guys. We
Exactly.
have to make
Exactly.
money. But
Money is
it
important.
is
Very important.
if you do something you love, right, and you spend so much time, I mean, in harnessing your craft, trust me, you're going to be the expert that everyone wants,
Yeah.
and you'd be able to solve problems, you'd be able to make a change in the lives of other people, and you could still have enough money in your pockets for you to feel good about yourself and for you to take care of the people you love.
Yeah. So the other thing I talked about with Dr. Yakama Jones is how to make vocational training and vocational skills just more attractive, because I think, again, my opinion, I think people see any vocational skill as a second option. Like, okay, I know you will go university, so let's go do catering.
Shout out to the catering guys.
I feel like, and I really do hope that that is changing now, because the amount of investments that we see caterers, for example, putting into their businesses, we've seen so much creativity and profit in these what you would call vocational skills. So I'm just thinking about this, just the same question: how do we make this a part of the education so that it's not separate, so that it's not
I mean, this is not even just a Sierra Leonean problem. This is definitely a global problem. I
absolutely.
was watching a documentary a couple months ago about the education system in Singapore. And even in countries like that, they filter out people, right? So if you, I mean, they're heavy on standardized testing. And so the moment you don't reach a certain percentile, then you have to start thinking of doing something vocational, something different, because you do not come for school, basically. And we have the same thing in Sierra Leone. And even we have designed a system, our education system, the 6334 system, is actually that, okay, after 9 years of basic schooling, which includes the 6 years of primary and 3 years of junior school, if you don't want to go further, that's an opt out. So you can go to vocational institutes, right?
Yeah.
So with what you're recommending now is for us to have that even within the curriculum.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, in ways, the problem here is also we're so heavy on the theoretical learning because we have home economics, right, in schools. We have performing arts in schools. We have creative practical arts in schools, right? But I mean, the grammar school has fantastic. Maybe you have to block that. I know I'll be posting problem. I'll just say speak general.
All people from other schools watching this would be
Yeah.
tuning out the grammar school part.
They'll be rolling their eyes like
rolling their eyes.
Uganda. No, but okay. In schools you'd have performing arts, right? But trust me, if you let's say we'll visit 10 schools in Sierra Leone, both public and independent schools, right? And you ask the students, when was the last time they saw a drum or a balanji or a recorder? Trust me, they wouldn't know, right? But they would know how to draw the drum
Yes.
on their book, right?
And label the parts.
And label the parts, right? And home economics, it's the same thing. You probably do that one practical where everyone will come and you just look at the teacher doing everything, and then the teacher will call the other teachers, probably then call them basin, so then go
Yeah.
serve for them, right? But actually, what we should be doing is doing more experiential learning by doing, right? So I know some of the traditional schools like Albert Academy and Prince
Mm.
of Wales and Collegiate Grammar School, they used to do woodwork
Mhm.
in school, electronics, but some of these courses have all vanished from the curriculum. So we need to think about bringing them back, because some people are really good with their hands. And the thing here is also interdisciplinary learning, right?
Mm.
We have to try as much as possible to get students to have a taste of the different areas. Now there's a hyper focus on STEM, so-called
Mm.
STEM subjects, and there's
Mm.
a hierarchy of subjects. We've put the STEM subjects right at the top. Your physics, chemistry, engineering, science, maths, right?
Mm.
And then afterwards, then you'd have to think about economics, geography, and then we come down to the humanities, English, literature, and then after that, think subjects like drama, music, and perhaps at the bottom is dance. But really, all of these subjects should be at the same level, right?
Right.
Then learners should be able to try these different kinds of subjects and then decide, you know what, this is what I want to spend my life doing. I enjoy physics, but I'm also really good at theater.
Mm.
And so that's the thing, and
I
that's my problem.
Question: do you
Yeah.
think it is problematic that we have to split into streams after mid-secondary school, after Form 3, where you don't sit per care, and then you go into science, arts, or what's the other one?
Business.
Accounting, business?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that also problematic?
It is 100% problematic. I felt that it was problematic when I was in secondary school. Um, I was 13 when I
Mm.
started SSS1. And I always tell people it makes no sense that we're telling 14, 15, and 13-year-olds to decide what they want to spend the rest of their life doing. Because the moment you decide to specialize in, say, the arts, for example, you're going to lose that foundational thing on physics, chemistry. You're never going to do the sciences again. I mean, there
Yeah.
could be exceptions, but it'd be extremely difficult for you to get back to it.
Yeah.
And the moment you decide, okay, I'm just going to focus on business, you're losing all interest in humanities, right? And I think the problem with this is it limits students. So now I'm even having conversations with some educators say, have you tried to think of a way to actually merge these streams? Can students do both business subjects and science subjects, or
Mm.
art subjects and business subjects? And so by the time when they get to SS3 now, and decide to go to university, then they make that
They
decision.
make a choice, yeah. When you put these children in boxes and say, okay, you're going to art stream, they kind of figure out by what they know and what they've been exposed to, that if I go to the art stream, then I'm probably going to end up becoming a lawyer. And they think, okay, so if I want to be a successful person who went to the art stream, then it's a lawyer. Or if I want to be a successful person who went to the science stream, then it's a doctor or an engineer. Or I work at the bank if I went to the business stream. And so it makes it easy for them to come to that conclusion about what they want to become when there's a huge, vast array of professions and things that people can do and things that they're probably talented in at the time that they're making that decision that they could go to. So the question I would ask you is, if you had one thing, and probably I've preempted an answer for you, but
Uh-huh.
if you had one thing to change, one thing you could make different about the Sierra Leone education system, what would that one thing be?
It's a heavy question because I have a lot of ideas in my head. I will make the curriculum more broad-based, so more
Mm.
interdisciplinary. So yes, so in that part, like you rightly preempted, it would take away streaming.
Mm.
And it's not just streaming based on disciplines, by the way, that's problematic. It's also streaming based on abilities, which
Mm.
quite a number of schools still do in Sierra Leone, right? The top students, top of the set, are put in one
Mm.
class, and then you go
Where you have
right
one
down,
A, one
one
B,
B,
one
one C,
C.
one.
Yeah.
And what happens with that is those who are the bottom of the set, they internalize that. We are at the
Mm.
bottom of the sets. We're 1E. And even the teachers themselves have that, right? Now, there are arguments for it that, okay, but the fast learners, you go fast, right? And if you just put all of those who are slow, or you understand, would work with them,
Mm.
but not really,
We don't
because
really pay attention because they're doomed
exactly,
already.
so you're going to one you get, I'm
Mm.
sorry for you, you're going to be trouble. You understand? Wherein, if we put people together, mix their abilities, right? More collaborative work. They can help each other. They can support each other. You can
Mm.
learn from each other. Have peer-to-peer learning sessions, right? It's so definitely. I mean, but the to answer your question, the most important thing I think is for us to think of ways in which we can get young people to have access to all these different disciplines. Education is a leading and a lagging indicator, which essentially means education, it can predict the future.
Mm.
So you and I will agree that if Sierra Leone invests in education today, we're going to be more economically developed. We'll live longer. Would enjoy Sierra
I
Leone,
think
right?
that's the president's intention, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
with the free quality education, that's the intention. Because
Intention.
when
Mm.
you open people's eyes to education, when you give them the right tools, the
Mm-hmm.
right tools and skills,
Mm-hmm.
they have nothing to do but to flourish, right? Yeah.
Exactly. We had a dynamic Minister of Education in the past cabinet
Mm.
with who is now Chief Minister, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for him, there's a lot of high expectations
Mm.
for him, right? And a lot of people have criticized
Mm-hmm.
some of the policies he
Mm-hmm.
pushed whilst he was Minister of Education,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I do not agree with all of them, but I also saw some policies which I think were quite progressive, which we're going to reap positive benefits from.
Mm.
So I tell people the thing is what Dr. Senge did 2 years ago. It's not something we're going to
We're going to
see
see
now.
now. Yeah.
These are things you would see 15, 20 years from now. Some of the policies that some of our governments are moving with, which, okay, yes, they would have agreed with at UNESCO or the Global Partnerships for
Mm-hmm.
Education. Those people, by the way, are doing a lot of good work, but sometimes it just doesn't fit our
Yeah.
context. And
Yeah.
so we have to recognize that certain things we have to move slowly with certain things, and we have to put more investment in other areas, because even with Sierra Leone, the reason why people want to be lawyers and engineers and doctors is because even our parents, Salone education being fine and all that, but it was very colonial, and we were being taught so that we could serve the colonial masters,
Yeah.
right? The Europeans, right?
Mhm.
These white collar jobs and public servant jobs and sitting in offices, right?
Mhm.
That was a colonial pattern. It was not meant for us to thrive. We were doing
You're
their
meant to
work.
serve, yeah,
Exactly.
to work for
For
them, yeah.
them. So now we have to think about, that's why creativity is important. Be literate, right? But creativity should be as important as literacy. The literacy would help you so that you can know how to write your contracts, you
Mm-hmm.
can know how to pitch your business,
Mm-hmm.
you can know how to market. But that's as much as you need, right?
Yeah,
Those basic skills.
yeah. So as we round up the conversation, I know the big question here is currently,
Mhm.
is the education system really preparing us for the future? Um, and people can get, if you're watching or listening, you may have gotten some hints from the responses. But one thing I always say is not 100% of the responsibility lies on the government or even the teachers or the schools. Some amount of responsibility lies on the learners themselves, right? So my last question to you would be, what can learners do? Because if you're in an environment that is not really getting your creative juices flowing, or is not giving you the right tools, like, but you know in your heart of hearts that you want to be a singer, or you want to be an actress, or you want to be a doctor or an engineer, though you don't have you're not in the correct environment, what can you do to make sure that you learn the things you need to learn and you build the skills you need to build in order to be successful in whatever you've thought of or dreamt about being? What is the responsibility of learners?
Um, yeah, with rights definitely come responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So children have the right to learn
Mm-hmm.
and to learn in spaces that are safe, in spaces that are creative, in spaces that really support them and give them the right tools.
Mhm.
But you're 100% correct in saying they have responsibilities that they have to meet.
Mhm.
And even in Sierra Leone today, there's a lot of difficulties with young people taking up their responsibilities, right? And I think that's something we as young people, we have to change. So for young learners today, they really have to make use of the opportunities that have been given to them, right? In Sierra Leone, there's disparity in even how we spread out these opportunities and resources. I always tell the young men that I teach at grammar school that, listen, you are in arguably one of the best schools in the country. But trust me, even within Sierra Leone, right? I'm sorry, even within Freetown, right? What you're getting here at grammar school, a lot of schools in Freetown don't get. Before now, they talk about school and with the upline. So you have to make use of that opportunity. And you also have to understand that you're in Sierra Leone. It's one of the poorest countries in the world, which means that it's a headache for our president, it's a headache for our government, it's a headache for your parents to provide for you because there just isn't enough.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that also with the world and how it's changing, you're not just competing with Sierra Leoneans, you are competing with people from other parts of the world. Someone will be sitting in Kenya and will be having your job because they're remotely in Nairobi and they're working from there for something in Sierra Leone. So the thing that young people have now, the power they have now is the internet. Unlike them, I told them, I mean, we get WhatsApp while they left school. Even WhatsApp, we get group, we get voice call,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You can use if you have access to the internet, right? Make use of that, right? Learn online. There are free online tools like Khan Academy. You have like tutors on YouTube that give lessons for free. So if you're struggling with a particular teacher or subject at school, try to make use of the resources that are available outside. And on a personal note of following your passion, just ride the wave and stay true to the things that you love. We all know what we really want to spend our time doing, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes even with these creative things, there's certain industries that will get more investments than on other areas, right? So just keep doing what you have to do and do it sensibly as well. So yes, in some ways, our parents are right that you have to have something to fall back on.
Exactly.
So yes, you could be crazy mad about music or theater or dance or football.
But that's also critical thinking, right? You have
Mhm.
to have a plan A, a
And a
plan
plan B.
B, a plan C, a plan C1.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
also how you
Yeah.
problem solve because
Hmm.
not everything is going to go according to plan all the
All the
time.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding. And the thing here is the power that also young people have is that there are a lot of problems in Sierra Leone. And with a lot of problems, it means that these problems need to be fixed. And so, what you have to do is that find the area that you love doing, right? Identify the problems within that area and think of solutions that would solve these problems
Mm.
within the area you love.
Mm.
For me, I always tell people that one of the reasons why I got into education is because I'd always wanted to live in Sierra Leone. I want to raise my family here. And I tell my friends there is not a single school in Sierra Leone right now that can give my children that I'm hoping to get one day by God in power, right? No school, not in a salon, will go give me picking and the kind education while one then gets. And so for me, it's being in the system and helping schools, deliver that sort of education, or perhaps even one day having a school of my own
Yeah.
that would deliver that.
Mm. On that note, thank you so much, Bassie, for your wisdom, your passion. Truly inspiring for this conversation. And I hope everyone listening or watching has learned a thing or two, or, you've just been inspired to go learn something or help your community solve a problem, because that's also a way of learning, and you can be so much more when you apply yourself, critical thinking, and try to solve problems in trying to solve problems within your community. So thank you once more for being a part of today's conversation. Thank you for being part of Honestly Speaking. And thank you to our awesome crew behind the cameras for this episode. And to everyone listening or watching, please continue this conversation after this episode. Share with your friends, your family, continue the conversation and see what you can do to support the education system in Sierra Leone, whether it's by applying yourself or by teaching others what you've learned in this episode today. That's it for Honestly Speaking today. I've been your host. My name is Antonia Howard, and I'll see you next time. If you've enjoyed today's discussion, please like and share. And if you're feeling inspired, do leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. And of course, carry on the conversation online. Share your thoughts, experiences, and ideas using hashtag HonestlySpeakingSL. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay honest.